So today was one of my highest word count days I think I've ever written. I don't get anywhere usually near this close, even on my best days. It's maybe 2,000 words. It just happened to be one of those days though where the words just happened to be coming to me, and I went through with it. I'm actually hoping that this is perhaps sort of a byproduct of doing the right everyday sort of program where if I show up basically 7 days a week, maybe 6 of the 7 I have kind of a low word count day, but that seventh day the muse will strike, whatever you call it, but like my brain will just kind of be firing, and we'll be able to get kind of a very high word count day. That's my hope. At least that's my theory on what's happened so far. But I'm very, very glad. So I'm 1 week into this, and today I hit my highest word count. Basically, I'm just gonna say the highest word count I've hit ever. Now, what you're seeing here is not me actually doing any writing, really any kind of new words. This is me kind of at the end of my day, going back through and making edits to what I wrote that day. I'm a big proponent basically of doing a kind of an edit as you go phenomenon. I know people say don't, there are plenty of people that will say don't do that, don't edit as you go, because you get this sort of kind of end up in this sort of like analysis paralysis scenario where you're always kind of reworking what you've written and you never make any progress. I tend to be sort of in the opposite camp of that, which I can go to maybe a bit more detail in another video. But I generally do prefer sort of making edits to my what I've written basically that day if I have the time to do it. And my main reasoning behind doing an edit as you go phenomenon is just because what you put down on your first draft basically influences what's going to happen with your second draft. People that go in with the mentality of, write a really fast, bad draft and just go back and continually revise it. What they're sort of overlooking in that theory is that the moment a word is placed down on your word processor, the moment a word is put down on the page, that's going to basically influence your thought. You're never really going to delete that word and replace it and then reshape every other sentence and word that comes after it, right? It's a bit like taking a block out of the Jenga pile, right? You get this nice Jenga tower, you take one block out, that's going to end up basically influencing the rest of your story. Now, maybe altering a couple words here and there isn't going to make a big deal, but the sentences that you're putting down on the page are going to just influence every other sentence, every other chapter that comes after it. And you can tell a story 1,000 different ways, but each time you put a word down, basically, you're sort of narrowing the pathway. You're sort of funneling down how that story is going to be told. And so if you go into a second draft with a first draft where you sort of just fast wrote it and you have plenty of sentences that are just clunky and not working, you're going to be more likely to just try and edit and fix it rather than perhaps taking that sentence out and reworking it, and risk perhaps having to rework every other sentence in that paragraph and every other paragraph in that chapter. And maybe I'm, just the lazy one here, but I tend to find that this is true of most of my work. That whenever I go into a second draft, I'm obviously going to make changes to it, but I don't ever really want to, and I go, I do everything I can basically to avoid having to take, entire sections out and completely rewrite them, revise them. Yeah, I'm more likely and I'm more happy going to a second draft, basically where my ideas and thoughts and the story is shaped in a pretty coherent way, and then just have to go through and make sure that there are obviously structural developmental changes that need to maybe happen. There are the line edits and all that stuff that need to go in. I'm not necessarily going into second drafts basically with the mentality of, hey, I'm going to be happy taking out all these words and reshaping this whole story and basically rewriting the entire thing.